is Pierre Abadi, and I'm the Group Climate Director for Tikehau Capital. Europe is highly dependent on Russian fossil imports. Since 1990, Europe has increased its dependency to fossil fuel import from 40% to 60%. Currently, Russia is the biggest importer of fossil fuel to Europe. 40% of its gas, 50% of its coal, and 30% of its oil are coming from Russia. In Europe, we have launched since a while the European Green Deal. We had the Paris Agreement in 2015, aiming at reducing our CO2 emission, and Europe has launched last summer a plan called Fit for 55. 55 means 55% of CO2 reduction by 2030. When we look at this plan, there is, I would say, three main areas of focus. First one is reduction of the energy consumption of Europe, 36% by 2030. Then is the penetration of renewable. 40% of our energy consumption should come from renewable by 2030. And then the last point is the deconnection from fossil fuels for car with a ban of thermal engine by 2035. If we do this plan, we reduce our CO2 emission, which is good for climate. But if we have by 2030 40% of renewable, we can get rid of Russian fossil fuels. The energy transition in Europe has been accelerated by at least 3 years. The initial plan was to halve the CO2 emission by 2030. Today, the target is not anymore fully climate related, but is to disconnect as soon as possible from fossil fuel. And to do so, Europe is currently launching a new plan called REPowerEU. This plan is aiming at reducing by 80% the gas dependency on Europe from Russia in the next 12 months, and by 2027 to be fully independent for any fossil fuel from Russia. Ultimately, what's happening right now is an acceleration of at least 3 years in advance of the initial plan. There are, in Europe, three main areas of opportunities: buildings, renewables, and cars. These are linked with the CO2 emissions. Buildings are one of the biggest emitters of Europe. It takes a lot of energy to heat up and cool down our buildings. Renovating them is not rocket science. We are speaking about insulation, we are speaking about new doors, new windows, heat pumps. It requires hundreds of millions of investment on a yearly basis. But if we apply it very quickly, we can reduce substantially our gas consumption. Then, renewables. The quickest way to have them penetrating is solar. Solar, if we soften the regulatory framework, can be deployed in a few months. And then cars. Cars are one of the biggest users of oil. The penetration of electric cars will shift the use of fossil to electricity coming from renewables.